Goku versus Gojo is one of the most overdone fights in anime, bar maybe Goku versus Naruto and Goku versus Superman. I'm noticing a trend here.
Hey, it's me, Goku!
There are dozens of videos on YouTube alone, not to mention probably countless Twitter posts about this, but I want to do it anyway.
Soon you will know. We already know the smell of love. Know the smell of love. Know the smell of love. Know the smell of the game.
The first big question whenever it comes to a cross-verse debate like this is, do you make energy types equal? Basically, with characters like Goku, Naruto, Ichigo, etc., they use special types of energy to do the things that they do. Goku specifically uses a concept called ki, which is basically life energy. However, Gojo uses a concept called cursed energy, which is essentially the result of negative emotions. So the question here is, do you make their energy types equal? For example, Goku is able to sense people, but he's only able to do so because he senses their ki. If you assume Gojo doesn't have ki, then Goku wouldn't be able to sense Gojo. Alternatively, Gojo would be unable to detect anything about Goku because Gojo can't sense any cursed energy coming from him. So, do you make energy types equal? Making energy types equal would unintentionally give people advantages that they didn't have before. For example, Goku might be popping off black flashes every 2 seconds. For the sake of simplicity, I will say that we will be equalizing energy types for this. However, I won't be giving either combatant an unnecessary advantage from this equalization of energy types, okay?
Boo! You stink!
Before we start comparing stats and feats, we need to get one thing out of the way, and that's Gojo's Limitless technique.
You actually touched infinity existing between you and me.
The thing that makes Gojo seem incredibly overpowered in any of these versus matchups is his Limitless curse technique. A lot of people don't actually know the ins and outs of Limitless and just assume it's some sort of omnipotent barrier technique that deflects and absorbs anything, which is not true, actually. Limitless has a whole science behind it, and you could probably get a PhD in it if you applied for it. In simple terms, Gojo uses his curse technique to bring out a concept called infinity, which he uses to warp space-time around him, slowing something down to the point where it looks like it's not even moving. If you need an example, think Zeno's paradox, Achilles and the tortoise, something that both Gojo and Gigi Akutame, I hope I said that right, reference as being a pretty clear-cut example of how Limitless would actually work. If Achilles raced a tortoise that had a head start and he had to stop at every halfway point, he would never reach the tortoise because he would be stuck in a continuous cycle of halfway points. If you need a simpler and more accurate example, this equation that the author shares in the JJK manga should clear it up pretty quick. If you take 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/16 and so on and so forth, you'd never actually reach 1. Basically, think 0 and 1. What's between 0 and 1? Well, you can have 0.1, 0.01, 0.001, and so on and so forth. By bending space-time around himself, Gojo's able to exaggerate the distance between him and something else, slowing it down to the point where it never actually reaches its target. In Jujutsu Kaisen 0, a character named Miguel actually deduces how infinity works based on Suguru Geto's own analysis, saying that he warps space-time on the atomic level. So how would you be able to get past infinity? Warping space-time sounds seriously impressive, doesn't it? Well, would you believe me if I said Goku can absolutely do that? To get past Limitless, you would need to do one of two things. Either A, you would need infinite speed or above, I'll explain that in a minute, or B, you would need attacks that either ignore or destroy space-time. The second one's pretty obvious. If Gojo's warping space-time around himself on the atomic level, attacks that destroy or ignore space-time would probably do the same thing. But the first thing that I brought up, infinite speed, basically, if Gojo's Limitless slows things down, having infinite speed would protect you from that. Someone with infinite speed is infinitely fast and so wouldn't be able to be slowed down by Limitless. Something I want to debunk and to give JJK fans a little bit of credit actually, Gojo's Limitless technique doesn't rely on what he can perceive. It's possible that was originally the case, however that was when Gojo was still learning, and it's also never implied that you can just speed blitz Limitless in the manga, otherwise you probably would have seen that. So does Goku have what it takes to break through Limitless? The two qualifications we highlighted earlier, you would either need infinite speed, or you need attacks that either destroy or ignore space-time. And the answer is yes, Goku has both of these. And depending on how you view Dragon Ball continuity, he might even have it as early as the Buu Saga. First, ignoring or destroying space-time. Everyone brings up Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and Super Buu screaming their way out of the hyperbolic time chamber. For JJK fans that don't know, the hyperbolic time chamber is an alternate dimension with an altered flow of time. Inside the time chamber, 1 day equals 1 year. After being trapped inside it, both Super Buu and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks use a technique called the Vice Shout to escape it. The Vice Shout is indeed a key technique, so more powerful key techniques, potentially like the Kamehameha, would be able to do essentially the same thing. There's also Dragon Ball Super, where characters do things like blow up the time chamber just by transforming, or threatening to destroy the entire macrocosm just by punching, which our feats we'll get to in a little bit. But basically what I want to highlight is that Goku can indeed affect space-time and just straight bust space-time, and so would have no problem getting through Gojo's Limitless. And as for speed feats, Goku has more than a few of these. Even as early as the Buu Saga, Goku in his base form was able to cross multiple infinities worth of distance in just a few seconds, traveling from Grand Kaio's planet all the way towards the top of the macrocosm to Hell towards the bottom of Otherworld. In between those two is Heaven, which is stated to be the size of the mortal realm. The mortal realm is stated to be infinite in size multiple times, and it's stated that Heaven literally gets lost in the skies of Otherworld, so traveling from Grand Kaio's planet all the way to Hell would take multiple infinities worth of distance. But some people will say this isn't canon since it is technically anime filler, which Akira Toriyama would disagree with you, but that's not even the extent of it. Fast forward to the Universe 6 tournament in Dragon Ball Super, Goku is actually forcing himself into the future to combat Hit's time skip. Some people will debate this and say that he was just stronger than Hit, and so the time skip didn't work on him like it does in the manga. However, we actually get some more insight into this feat during a filler episode of Dragon Ball Super where King Kai actually confirms Goku was forcing himself into the future, which is the definition of immeasurable speed, someone who's able to travel through time through sheer speed alone. Towards the end of the Goku Black arc, Goku is able to exist within an erased timeline. In the anime, it's a little less clear, but in the manga for sure, Goku is existing within a completely erased timeline, which would mean it's without time. This is the definition of an inaccessible speed feat. And then in the Tournament of Power, Jiren is stated to transcend time entirely, which may or may not give him either immeasurable or irrelevant speed, but most people would probably only grant him immeasurable speed, so that's what I'll be doing for this video. And Goku, by the time Mastered Ultra Instinct rolls around, is well beyond what Jiren was able to do in his fight against Hit. And during the Granola arc, Granola is actually stated to move faster than Instant Transmission, which is confirmed to be instant. Goku, by the end of the Granola arc, would be stronger and therefore faster than Granola, meaning Goku would also scale to this. If you're confused on what I mean by infinite speed, immeasurable speed, etc., I highly recommend watching my Sonic vs. Mario video, but in short, infinite speed means someone is infinitely fast and they cross an infinite distance in any time. Inaccessible speed is when someone travels any distance in 0 time. Immeasurable speed is when the speed equation breaks and is unable to accurately measure how fast someone is going, and irrelevant speed is when the concepts of distance and time start to become irrelevant. But back on topic, what we've highlighted is that Goku is more than able to break through Limitless, either through sheer speed or through his sheer power. So the thing that most people say Goku can't even get past is something that he can easily get past. So now that we established that Goku can in fact fight Gojo, it's time to compare their raw stats. Something I want to get out of the way really quick is that there's going to be a whole lot of wanking in this section of the video, specifically for Gojo, because without that, you can get these characters to like planet level at best. It's not looking good. I'm going to do a brief rundown of what Goku can do, just so we know what we're up against. Because even mega hyper wanked Gojo isn't comparable in terms of stats, I have to be honest with you. Even at the start of Dragon Ball Super, Goku is able to punch away the entire macrocosm in his god form, a macrocosm that is comprised of at least 10 infinity-sized spaces. This is because the realm of the Kaioshin is confirmed to be 1/10 the total macrocosm in size, and the mortal realm is repeatedly stated to be infinite in size. You can't divide infinity by anything, so in order for all this to make sense, the total macrocosm will need to be comprised of at least 10 infinity infinity-sized spaces, and this is a massive lowball. There is significant evidence to suggest that it is much larger, but we'll be using this downplayed version of Goku because Gojo's gonna need it, as we will see in a little bit. Later, Goku absorbs the power of Super Saiyan God into his base form, and debatably even surpasses it, with Vegeta and even the episode titles stating as such, meaning Goku's base form is now able to punch away entire macrocosms pretty casually, relatively speaking. In the manga, it's significantly less impressive because Goku doesn't actually absorb the power of Super Saiyan God into his base form, or at least it's never stated he does, and it would be disingenuous to assume so. But even if you want to use this version of Goku, as we'll cover later, Gojo just cannot compete. Goku would then proceed to get incomprehensibly stronger during the course of Dragon Ball Super. Even if you use the Dragon Ball Super manga, and even if you're extremely conservative with your scaling, Goku still gets hundreds of times stronger during the course of Dragon Ball Super. He also unlocks multiple other transformations like Super Saiyan Blue, which is 50 times Super Saiyan God. He can stack the Kaioken on top of that up to times 20, and then Ultra Instinct, which is much stronger than Kaioken Blue. Ultra Instinct Mastered, which is even stronger than Ultra Instinct Sign. Yeah, even conservative numbers have mastered Ultra Instinct Goku at tens of thousands of times stronger than he was at the beginning of Dragon Ball Super. Goku also has some other feats. He's relative to Vegeta, who is able to destroy the Hyperbolic Time Chamber just by powering up. The Hyperbolic Time Chamber is an entirely different dimension. He fought against Infinite Zamasu and even sort of implied that if he had a Sensu Bean, he would actually be able to hold his own against a literal living timeline that was invading other timelines. And in Ultra Instinct, he shook the infinite world of Void, which is confirmed to be without time, space, and is confirmed to be infinite multiple times. A minor disclaimer, infinite can just mean very large or very great. So it's entirely possible that every time I bring up the word infinite in this video, it's just referring to a very large space or a very large power. But I should mention, we need to take infinite power statements seriously because that's pretty much the only way Gojo has any chance here. So now let's take a look at what Gojo can do, and heads up, this is going to be a little embarrassing for JJK fans. Even most skeptical scalers will grant JJK characters a large town level based on Jogo's fight with Sukuna. Later, it's confirmed that Yuki's black hole could probably destroy the planet. Even if we want to highball this and say that it's dwarf star level, that's not getting Gojo past Namek level. If you think this little action highlight here is a star, then that would add more credence to the star level I proposed. But that's heavily debated and it's not in the anime, so you could argue about that if you wanted to. If you believe that these little details in the back of Gojo's domain are actually stars, that would again add some more credence to star level scaling, which might put Gojo past Namek level, potentially Trunks Saga level. He might be able to throw hands with Mecha Frieza. To get Gojo to the levels that he could actually fight Goku somewhat realistically, we're gonna have to misinterpret some things. If you think that the stars around Gojo's domain are potentially countless or even infinite, that could add some credence to some universal scaling for Gojo. Something actually backed up in a TV guide for JJK, where the director of the anime says that Gojo creates large swaths of the universe. We'll also assume he scales above Yoruzu's perfect sphere and Hanami's jackpot. A perfect sphere is actually a little more difficult to make than you'd think, because the more points you add to an object, the rounder it gets, right? So in order to make a perfect sphere, you would technically need infinite points. As for Hikari, whenever he jackpots, he gains infinite cursed energy. Ignoring that infinite can just mean very great, or ignoring the fact that infinite cursed energy could be referring to infinite stamina, kind of like the androids from Dragon Ball. This would mean that Gojo, by extension, would have infinite power as well, considering that Gojo is repeatedly stated to be the strongest sorcerer, and we're assuming that he scales above infinite jackpot Hikari. But even our hyper mega giga-wanked Gojo with infinite power plus is still probably a base Goku victim. In terms of speed, you have top tier JJK characters hyping up Mach 3. We already covered Goku's speed feats earlier, so I won't do that again, but Mach 3 isn't doing anything to him. However, the author of JJK actually weighed in on this a little bit and said that going from infinite speed to Mach speed was kind of stupid on his part. So we'll be assuming the absolute maximum for Gojo and assuming that Gojo does indeed have infinite speed. In fact, depending on how you interpret Prison Realm, Gojo might actually have inaccessible speed. According to him anyway, time doesn't exist there, and moving in a void without time would require inaccessible speeds to do so. You could also argue that since attacks and domains will always hit, that Gojo has some kind of instantaneous reaction speed, which would contribute to the infinite inaccessible speed argument that I've been building. But even assuming that, Goku still has him beat with his immeasurable speed feats, and even a downplayed Goku still has inaccessible speed, so at best, they are equal in speed. And while it's not a traditional stat that most people take into account, I want to talk about their battle IQ. Goku isn't very bright, but he's definitely smart when it comes to combat. But Gojo isn't exactly dumb either. In fact, he's arguably just as smart as Goku, depending on how you interpret some things. For Goku specifically, I want to bring up how he was able to react and predict hits attacks when they were literally coming from paused time. He was able to predict and react exactly where Hit was going to attack him in 0.1 seconds, and it's shown to be very effective. Goku's definitely got some other stuff as well. A lot of his showings in the Tournament of Power are extremely impressive in terms of battle IQ, and he's got a whole lot of stuff in original Dragon Ball and Z that also really prop him up as a genius in most cases. On Gojo's side of things, since he hasn't been in that much of his own series, there's not much to really tell. He's definitely still incredibly intelligent, like how he used his domain expansion to lag everyone's brain so he could do his thing. And that was also while he was restricted, since using his curse technique Blue would actually endanger the people around him. However, Gojo does like to boast during his fights, especially when his opponent is caught off guard. This is something Goku actually doesn't do. In fact, in Dragon Ball, boasting without purpose is actually seen as a negative trait. So in terms of battle IQ, I definitely give it to Goku, but if you wanted to say that they were equal, or you wanted to say that Gojo has a slight edge on Goku, I would disagree, but I could definitely see where you'd be coming from. So, we've covered why Goku can get past Limitless. We've covered why Goku would probably beat Gojo in a fight comparing just their raw stats. But none of that really matters if Gojo can just one-shot Goku, right? After all, Hollow Purple is supposed to be some kind of omnipotent erasure technique. Well, just like Limitless, Hollow Purple has a whole science behind it. Once again, you could probably get some sort of paper about it if you applied for one. But it doesn't work the way a lot of people think it does, and actually might be significantly weaker than you'd probably think. In simple terms, Hollow Purple is essentially the combination of red and blue. Red basically being push and blue being pull. As we established earlier, Gojo's abilities work on the atomic level, so when red and blue are combined into Hollow Purple, your atoms are essentially being scattered. It's not an instant delete button like some people may think, but I will cover that portion in a little bit. Essentially, there are a couple ways you can survive Hollow Purple. If you can survive or resist attacks that work on the atomic level, then you'd be able to survive Hollow Purple. The author of JJK actually describes Hollow Purple as sort of crushing mass, not repelling and scrambling it like I just asserted. However, you could argue that they just don't know exactly what they wrote, because even normal people like Toji are able to survive Hollow Purple without being completely erased from existence. But I've been hyper charitable to Gojo for the entire video, so I'll also take into account the possibility that Hollow Purple is in fact some sort of instant remove button. The question becomes, can Goku survive being scrambled from the atomic level? Yeah. In the first arc of Dragon Ball Super, it's explained that Beerus's massive sun energy ball thing, I don't know what it's called, would literally disintegrate anyone that goes near it. In physics, disintegration means undergo or cause to undergo disintegration at the subatomic level. And Goku, in base form, manages to tank the attack and just kind of punch it away. So this is probably an accurate representation of what would happen if Goku came into contact with Hollow Purple. He just punch it away. I'm not joking. And even if we're hyper mega giga wanking how Hollow Purple works and saying it's an instant erase button, Goku has existence erasure resistance. Goku has tanked Hakkais before and resisted being erased from existence. For those who don't know what the Hakkai is, it's essentially what everyone gasses Hollow Purple up to actually be. It does actually erase things from existence, even spirits. The only time the Hakkai didn't really work was when Goku used it improperly against someone who was immortal. Oh, and the time it was used against Goku and Frieza. And while Frieza managed to overpower it, Goku didn't. But Goku was still able to resist being literally erased from existence. So even assuming Hollow Purple is an instant delete button, Goku can just resist that. So no, Hollow Purple isn't going to be Gojo's ticket to win here. Goku can just punch it away, or tank it, or just ignore it. This is Gojo's probably last ace in the hole, his domain expansion. Along with all the other perks of domain expansion, Gojo specifically gets a really OP power from this sort of thing. However, just like with everything else in this video, the JJK fandom has misinterpreted how exactly this works and used it as an instant win con when that's not true. But to give JJK fans a little more credit, Goku isn't exactly going to be able to dodge the domain. The domain expansion specifically targets the coordinates of the target. Did I say target in the same sentence twice? I'm sorry. I'm very dumb. So even if Goku is in Mastered Ultra Instinct and you think UI is some sort of omnipotent instant dodge mode, the domain will literally just appear on Goku wherever he is, and he can't exactly dodge himself. And while it's entirely possible for Goku to just break out of the domain, as highlighted earlier in the video, hell, even JJK characters manage to do it and they're nowhere near as strong as Goku, that doesn't really mean anything when your mind is being flooded with infinite information. Or maybe more accurately, your mind is being flooded with an immense amount of information that's being exaggerated to appear infinite. The explanation given by the author for Unlimited Void kind of makes it feel like that. To steal an example from the manga, say you saw an apple. In Gojo's domain, you would infinitely perceive the letter A, then P again, L, E, so on and so forth, with a potential vast amount of information. In fact, in 0.2 seconds, your mind's already flooded with 6 months worth of information, which is being exaggerated to appear infinite inside your mind. Can Goku combat this? Potentially, depending on how you view some things. Again, if the Dragon Ball universe is indeed infinite in size, you would need infinite power to destroy it. And if that's the case, then Goku might actually be able to tell the difference between someone with a power level of 1 and a power level of infinity and everything in between that, and therefore would be able to comprehend infinite information. And to debunk one more thing and give JJK fans just a smidge more credit, people will often bring up Vegito turning into a candy ball whenever you bring up Unlimited Void, and I would just want to say that's not equivalent. Goku does not share that ability. It's actually exclusive to Vegito as confirmed in Daizenshu. Goku doesn't exactly have any resistances to mind abilities. Especially since Gojo's domain isn't ki or magic, Goku really doesn't have any counters to this. Unless you think Goku is actually able to comprehend infinity. In conclusion, like and subscribe and send this to your anime friends so that I can make more money.
We already know.